Breaking right now, we can confirm to you that Ted Cruz will make Carly Fiorina his vice presidential running mate. He is expected to announce that in just a couple hours from now. Carly Fiorina will be on his ticket. Of course, you know, he's got a challenging, to say the least, path to the nomination. He can't get the number of delegates he needs to get the nod. So why is he out naming a vice presidential contender? Indiana's a big deal. Pretty critical. Coming up, of course, next week. It's the next big GOP contest. You get 57 delegates up for grabs, and, you know, this basically is Cruz and Kasich's final chance to block Trump from getting the 1,237 delegates that he needs. And if they're able to do that, they would then force a contested convention. You know, I'm going right now to my guest on this. We've got with us Kristen Soltis Anderson. First of all, Kristen, your reaction to this news that Ted Cruz is naming a VP, even though he doesn't have the nod.
He really wants to change the news cycle. One thing that Donald Trump has been a real pro at through this entire campaign is every time there's a bit of bad news, every time Trump would maybe have a bad showing in a primary, he'd do something the very next day that would change the conversation. Cruz is clearly trying to do that. You've also seen today endorsements coming out from folks like Senator Cory Gardner of Colorado. At this point, it's clear that any ammunition that the Cruz campaign has left, they're trying to fire off, because they know that he needs to change the narrative so he can have some kind of momentum going into Indiana if he wants any chance of stopping Trump.
Kind of seems a little silly. I mean, he has, at this point, no path to getting the number of delegates he needs. His only hope is to pray that, you know, that this is going to be a contested convention and that he can get in on that round. Does Carly really add anything to him? Or for those people that are maybe on the fence, are they saying to themselves, gosh, is this guy delusional?
I think the one thing that could be an upside here is that if this gives Ted Cruz, say, a day or two of favorable coverage, if it makes it look more like he's somebody who's ready to get the nomination, he really wants to change the narrative away from looking, frankly, like a loser to looking like someone who is ready to be the Republican nominee. He wants to change it. He wants that new imagery, and that's why he's making this choice. But I think it's going to be very hard for him to really achieve that. I'm certain that Donald Trump is ready to declare this sort of a loser move. I'm positive that that will be the sort of thing that you hear from Donald Trump in the
Let's
next 24
keep an eye, by the way,
hours.
on Donald Trump's Twitter account, because that may be coming
sure.
any moment from now. But talk to me about Indiana and how it looks right now in this race.
The polling in Indiana is very minimal, in part because there are regulations that make it hard to poll there. But the three polls that I've seen show Trump ahead by anywhere from 5 to 8 points, which is probably enough for him to have a pretty good lead in real life, given that in the last elections that we had yesterday, he outperformed his polls by an average of 9 points. This is a big shift from earlier in the campaign when Trump had been underperforming his polling averages. He's now gotten to a point where people are looking at Kasich and Cruz, and if they're not thrilled with them, it's not that they're switching from one half of that alliance to the other. It's that they're choosing to go to Donald Trump. He's now pulling majorities in these states. He's looking very good as we move into Indiana.
So what's your prognosis for how Kasich fares there?
I think Kasich is pretty much toast at this point. You know, Kasich's real rationale for staying in the race was that last night's primaries were supposed to be his strong suit. Those are the places where he was coming in second place with Cruz in third. So his real rationale for staying in was that he was the best person to try to take out Trump in Rhode Island, in Maryland, in Pennsylvania. He failed to do those things. And so now you're looking at a state like Indiana. It's much closer to Wisconsin demographically. So it's going to be a state that really is more Cruz country. I think at this point, Kasich's path is just, it just doesn't make any more sense.
There's no path. There's no path. Kristen, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.